Hello, good evening and welcome to this episode of Berardi and Coke with me, Adam the Leeds fan. As usual, I'm joined by our regular ex-pro, Mr. Simon Johnson. Si, how are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself? A bit disappointed, like, obviously, but apart from that, I'm doing all right.
It's flat, wasn't it? Very flat. So, yeah, it is what it is.
Right. I mean, going on straight onto the game, it's for me, it's the first time in a while where I've sort of come away from the TV really disappointed and not having much positive to say. But I suppose it is what it is. They are where they are in their progress under Bielsa, and we've got to expect flat performances sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, also joining me today, we've got Karl, one of the regulars from the Orta Better podcast as well. Karl, do you agree with Si on that? Like, it was flat, wasn't it? There were no really to write home about, no standout performance, pitch was shit. It's just a nothing game for me. What were your thoughts? You agreeing with that?
Yeah, Simon's spot on there. Yeah, but I think blaming the pitch is a bit shit because they played on it as well. I think same for both teams. Can't use it as an excuse anymore. They managed it, we didn't. It's just the way it is. But I thought a lot of the time we were sloppy in possession in the first half. We tried to rush things, I think, a little bit. With the way that Villa were pressing, we probably should have slowed things down and just played the ball around and let them run around like headless chickens for a little while and maybe tire them out of it and then up our game. Like, we're well capable of holding on to the ball for, as long as we want, really. Like, we have the players there that can do it regardless of what some people might say about them. But I think if we slowed the game down in the first half when they started to look like they were doing to us what we'd normally do to other teams, then I think it's at that point we should have kind of taken control of the ball, regardless of whether it looked horrible to do it. Play it around. Yeah. Even if you're not penetrating with any passes or anything like that, it's harder to win. It's harder to play without the ball than it is with the ball. And I think we should have maybe gone down that route just to kind of kill the game and their momentum the way they were playing. But yeah.
Si, for me, and I don't know if you boys agree with this, I'll come to you first on this one, Simon. We played Strike in defensive mid again. We played him against Villa in the first game and we took him off after 21 minutes. So why have you seen anything in Strike's performance in midfield where you'd say, okay, he's going to have learned from that opening 21 minutes where he got booked and got subbed, hooked after such a short period? Was that naive from Bielsa? Was it a bit of a, what are your thoughts? Because I looked at it and I thought, fucking, what are we doing here? Have we not learned? And it's proved to be the wrong decision, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Bielsa, he's very stubborn. And look, I've had this debate with someone quite recently. He's got to where he is because of that stubbornness. So he will never deviate away from his own thoughts. I don't think. I don't believe that role suits Struts, but at the same time, the only player we've discussed it over the last two episodes, mate. The only player for me, apart from KP in the current Leeds squad, is Pablo, and he's not getting a look in at the moment. For me, it was quite evident that, especially second half, because that second half, Villa was just sitting on their lead. That was allowing us to have the ball. Yeah. So that's when you need someone to sort of thread passes through the gaps. Do you know what I mean? And look for players getting in between the lines. But he's not able to do that. He's more of a defensive-minded player. But it's okay having that part of the game, but you've also got to be able to play a pass like KP can. And we're not gonna have somebody come in that can do the role as good as him. It's as simple as that. And I think we've got to resign to the fact that, you know, he's just a massive miss for us. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, yeah. Karl, what are you saying? Do you think? I mean, what we are when you saw the starting lineup and you saw our strike was going to be playing, you know, we thought possibly is he going to play the three and we're going to play wing backs, or what we did against against Southampton, or did you think Strike's going to play defensive and we're going to be in trouble there? We're going to lose control of the midfield.
Yeah, I did. I'll be honest with you. What Simon said is correct. Bielsa's stubborn, and he's got to where he is because he's stubborn and he does what he wants to do. But I think at the moment people are saying we're trying to fit square pegs and round holes, but we don't necessarily have to do that when Strike can play perfectly well at centre back, and Llorente is more than capable of playing in the CDM role while Calvin's not there, you know. And I think we discussed it last week as well when we thought that Strike was going to be playing in that CDM role against Southampton, and then he ended up playing a little bit deeper and kind of Llorente filled in more than Strike kind of did. And I thought at that point Bielsa has kind of turned a corner, and we've kind of looked at it, and he's looked at it and gone, Jesus, that actually works, you know. And then tonight he's looked at it again and gone, you know what, fuck it, you know, we're safe. It's like, I'll just fuck around with it. This guy, like, he'll persevere with Strike in the CDM because that's where he wants him to play, regardless of how good I think he's playing, or anyone thinks he's playing at centre back. I think that's where Bielsa wants him to play, regardless. Yeah. And I think we're on enough points now to not have to worry about going down. And I think he is going to try and blood him in there while KP is out. Yeah,
and I think that's all right. I think if Bielsa sees Strike as a long term, you know, if he wants him to be a more rounded footballer, doesn't he? So if he can play 2-3 positions, you know, that benefits the thin squad. I get it. It goes completely with his philosophy as a coach. Completely understand it. So it's kind of like we just take it, don't we? Who are we to criticise? And then when you do get a flat performance like tonight, you can't have exhilarating performances second half like we did against Southampton, and then you can't have them every game, can you? It's just not feasible. And I was bored. I was so bored during that game. I just didn't. How many shots did we have on target? Didn't we see any stats on that? I can't remember us having a meaningful shot.
I think it might have been
other than the Roberts one.
That wasn't even on target, like.
Yeah, Roberts. So we spoke about him. I think Southampton and the game. Did he start the game before that as well?
No, he came on.
Palace, no, he came on, didn't he?
I mean, he just, for me, and it's terminology that I hate because it used to. It just winds me up, but he does flatter to deceive a little bit. Very rarely does he have a proper impact on a game. When he comes off the pitch, when I used to come off the pitch, I would ask myself, okay, how many shots have I got on target? How many chances have I created? And he doesn't do it. He's neat and tidy, and he's got a few little nice flicks and turns, but he's having no real impact on a game. And for me, that's worrying from somebody that plays in that position. But the thing that always frustrated me the most in this game was we've got a player that's probably in the current market valued at around £60 million, and we're not. He's played him on the left, but for me, he's way more effective on the right, and we're not utilising our best player, and that just made no sense to me at all. Yeah. And look, it's okay. We can say who are we to sort of criticise and have opinions on Bielsa, but that was definitely something that was a mistake for me. Costa's, you know, he's not at the level, and we've sort of shifted Rafinha out of his role where he's been absolutely flying, and put Costa there, who's not really at the level for me. And I can the more I see of him, the more I can see why Wolves let him go.
Yeah, no, I think
we
it's
were.
spot
Yeah, I think we were very much unbalanced when Costa started. I think when he's like you said about Roberts as well. I think Costa at this stage, he probably will go in the summer if we get what we think we should get from him. Like, but I think him and Roberts, they've had very good impacts off the bench in the last couple of games, and there's no denying that. You know, Costa set up a goal, and Roberts did as well, and you kind of look at that and you go, look, they're not terrible players. Maybe they're not up to starting 11 standard, but they're definitely.
Do you know what? There's a massive difference between being able to come off the bench and make an impact, and the pressure's totally different, and your mentality's got to be totally different because you come in when you come on as a sub, it's sort of win-win. It's sort of win-win because if you come on and make something happen, or even come close to making something happen, you're the hero. And if you don't, it's like, oh, well, you give it a good go sort of thing. But then when you're starting, that pressure is totally different, and you have no choice but to make something happen now. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, for me, Roberts, probably the last two games, he's getting in good areas, good shooting opportunities, and he's just not hitting the target. He's not hitting the target, and they're good chances. And I was talking to myself. Oh God, I shouldn't admit that, should I? But I wasn't talking to myself through the game. I was thinking, mate, do they do shooting practice? Because he's just not hitting the target at all, and you know, baffling.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Like when you were saying that there. Sorry, Adam. Do you know when you were saying that there, Simon? It's 2 years ago. We were having the same conversation about Bamford.
Really?
2 years. You know what I mean? No, well, like all Leeds fans, where I think they do shooting in training. He can't hit the fucking target. He's putting easy chances away. And we like that was a debate amongst Leeds fans on Twitter and all, like last season or the season before last, and it was like, can he do it this year? Should we rely on him? And like, maybe because Bamford is the age he is and Roberts is the age he is, we're expecting Roberts to start being more like Bamford at a young age. But look at how old Bamford. No, but look at how old Bamford is, and he's only gotten to he has got to his peak. This is like the best he's ever been. I don't know if he could go any higher than what he's doing, because let's be honest, there's not many strikers that would be able to put up with the Bielsa punishment in training and matches. They're not going to get much higher than the ability that they're at. So maybe we're just putting that much pressure on Tyler to kind of be like Patrick now, because
possibly
2 years ago we were talking the same kind of jargon about Bamford, you know.
But I think, and I'm gonna step in on this one, Karl. From my opinion, we've been saying the same thing about Roberts since he joined. We've been saying there's a player in there. He's got a great football brain, but he's just not capable at the moment of making the right decision and the key pass and the key movement at that time. And you know, what's Tyler now? 23, 24? Is he right? He's
only about 22, was he not?
I'm not sure. I think 22. But you know, you look at 22. Say he's 22. You look at other players in the Premier League of that age group. You know, they're contributing massively to games. You know, and I don't. I think we do expect a lot from Tyler Roberts, because we've got such a small squad, and each player needs to be able to contribute at any point. And we can't carry passengers when you have such a lean squad. And players like Costa, Roberts, Alioski, you know, what are they there for? And this takes me back to what we said on the pod before with under 23 and development football. What is the point? Because they're not. These players are either not getting the chance that they require, the match level experience to help them. And that's the thing with Roberts. He's come in, he's been on the peripheral of the first team the whole time, and he's not learned fuck all, because his football brain still isn't making him make the right decisions. So do you have a young kid who you think is going to make it to that level and give him chance after chance after chance to see him not do it, and you have to let him go to the Championship, or what do you do with him? What's the answer, Si? I mean, you're in with in your line of work now, obviously with the coaching and that. What do you think? Under 23 football, the development Premier League, is it shit? What's the point?
I mean, there's only, as a coach, there's only so much you can do for a player in terms of the information that you pass on to them. I'd like to think that whoever's going into detail with him about his game or telling him about these sort of finer details, what he needs to improve on. But like you say, it's just his decision making at times is really poor. And I mean, there was just one time in the first half, and it weren't even a big pass, but instead of just playing it out wide, I think it might have been I can't remember who was out there, but he's tried to dribble instead of just playing the pass and getting the ball back further up the field, and he gets tackled, and I'm just thinking that's an easy pass, just play it. Do you know what I mean? And it's just small details like that what he really needs to brush up on, holding on to the ball. But that's the difference in levels between the sort of average players in the Premier League and the sort of higher level in the players in the Premier League. They make the better decisions more often than not. Do you know what I mean? And he don't fit in, he don't come into the high level category at the moment.
Would you hold on to him, and then maybe, like Adam said, send him out on loan?
Do you know what? I'm going to be totally honest. I actually forgot how young he is. He's a baby, really, and he's got a lot of learning to do. I just like Ad said though. He's been there long enough now to sort of, I would say, be performing at a better standard. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No. I think just for clarity, he was born in '99, so he's just turned 22. So maybe we are being a little expecting more on him.
Yeah.
But he's a
baby. He's a baby.
But the thing is, you look at players like Maddison and Foden. They're consistently turning it in, and they're young.
Yep.
And
they're different caliber. They're a different caliber of player altogether.
Of course, but
at that level
why can't?
A lot longer.
But Maddison, for example, was playing at Coventry, and he was playing first team football at Coventry in League One when he was 16, 17. Yeah. So he's learning the right way. He's not being fucked off into the reserves to play against aging, players, people coming back from injury, and 17-year-olds. They're learning at a higher rate. Surely that's better for them.
Yeah, I think so. But I think also when Leicester picked up Maddison, he was still quite young, and he was able to get that. I think someone was saying that there's a difference where your Premier League coaching and Championship League One coaching is different. But with us, I think the standard of coaching is no different from Championship to the Premier League. It's still the same high standard, but maybe it's because Tyler was playing at a lower level when we got him. He was bouncing around in the League One.
And West Brom reserves, wasn't he?
Yeah, but bouncing around there and not really getting games, and that can have a massive effect on a player's development as well. As much as we say send him out on loan, that can, at a young age, that can have a massive development on them. You know what I mean? And it can slow their progress down. And maybe that's what's happened to Tyler. It's just he's had that bouncing around. Same with Bamford. He was bouncing around all sorts of clubs for a long time and wasn't really performed to the standard that he wanted and everyone expected. And all of a sudden now he's at an age where he can take the information in that's been given to him, and he can apply it in a more logical way.
And to be fair, in his defence, he's not started a whole lot of games this season. And look, you get world class players that come to the Premier League and struggle to find their feet. Do you know what I mean? So I think probably if you take everything into consideration, it's probably a touch harsh, but your career runs away from you so quickly, so he's got to start speeding up the improvement.
Well, Si, I'm going to put this to you, mate, because obviously you've been in this position. You've been in a similar position to what Roberts has found himself in, and you obviously when you started with Leeds, obviously you went out on loan a number of times. Do you think going out on loan at that age was help or hindrance? Would you have been better off, better served in a development league type scenario that these players find themselves in now? Or would you have been better off training with the first team now and again, and being brought in, or would you have been better off going out on loan and really making a claim? I suppose it's different now with all the stats and all the the scouts around. You're going to get more sort of feedback when you get sent out on loan to a League One team, for example. The coverage is there, but what would you think? How would you have wanted it to go for you in comparison to what Tyler's going through?
So for me, there's a whole lot of factors that you've got to consider about the loan moves. Obviously, the club that you would go to, what style of football do they play? Is it going to be suited to your game? Because people just expect young players to go out on loan willy-nilly without, especially when I was in the game, without any real thought going into it. And it was something that I was always really skeptical about. I never wanted to go out on loan, especially when I was doing well in the reserves. So the way I looked at things was, well, I'm getting taught a certain way to play here. It'll be good for my development in terms of the physicality, understanding what it takes to actually, get 3 points and how much it means to people and things like that. But in the same breath, when you go out on loan, you've got players that have been at higher level clubs and have dropped down, and the kind of envious that you're still at that a club at that level. It's really difficult. So you've got to make sure that the people around the place are right for you as well, and it's difficult. It's very hard. If you don't hit the ground running, people look at you and say, he's come from there. He ain't that good. He's no better than any one of us. And it's very, very difficult. Do you know what I mean? I can remember Milner going out on loan to Swindon, and I don't think he had the best of times there. But look, he was way above that. He was way above that level. So it's, in one sense, that can be really beneficial for you, but in a lot of ways, it can be a massive hindrance as well. So you've got to take lots of things into account before you just send players here, there, and everywhere. It's really important that you do your sort of due diligence before you send your players out.
Mm-hmm. So this brings me on to a point, Karl. Sorry, I'll come to you on this one, Karl, because I think you were on the pod when I mentioned this before, and we revolutionised what we think for English football and the pyramid of English football. So there's 92 teams in the Football League, Premiership and then Championship to League Two. So do you think teams in the Premiership should be pick 4 players from your under 23 from your development squad? You see your top under 23 performer. So for us, would be somebody like Joffrey Gellar, and send him to a championship team or send him to a level where he's going to get consistent games. And each Premiership team should have a team in each division. So a Leeds should have, say, Swansea in Championship, Bradford in League Two, and whoever's in League One. I don't look at the bottom leagues anymore as much. But Peterborough, for example, and we then go. Each Premiership team picks a team, and we go, right, we're going to send 4 of our players out or 3 of our players to this level, and they're going to develop. But is that something or?
Well, didn't we say that sometimes it could be better for players playing like a reserve team league rather than an under 23 team league, where they can essentially get up to speed on the physicality of a men's first team game. And it goes back to the point you were making about the Premier League under 23 league, Adam. Is that the best way to develop players just because it's got that elite academy category, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get that players are going to learn a lot more and stuff like that, but players are coming through now, and you look at the size of Traore there the last day against us. Like, Ayling put his hand on his shoulder and he fell over like a ton of bricks. And I know that's the way it's going at the moment, and that's, you know, players are manipulating the rules to win free kicks and whatnot. But like, I found growing up that when you played in those reserve leagues as a 17, 18-year-old, you weren't inclined to go down because it was frowned upon in some ways. You know what I mean? It was like, you need to stay on your feet. You need to win that ball. If you have a chance of getting to that ball, or you can fall over willingly, you get to that ball because you get ridiculed. And I think maybe players should start getting ridiculed for maybe going to ground like that. You know what I mean? And
I think so. I think so. And to be fair, boys, I need to take a bit of ownership on this. I've gone completely off piste from the Villa game on that one. But I think what you've just said there, Karl, about players manipulating the game, I'd like to. Obviously, we have our in off the bar, which will be out later on this week. But I just do want to touch on, or not particularly the referee, because that's something that will be that'll be done with yourself and Jimmy. But I do want to talk about Matt Targett tonight, because I thought this guy could have had 3-4 bookings at least. I thought it would really, he was on the knife edge from kind of early on. Si, what did you notice it? Did you think, well, how's this guy getting away with this? You know, there's a couple of incidents, flashpoints, weren't there?
Do you know what? I'm going to be totally honest, Dad. I really enjoyed his performance. Really enjoyed it.
Proper shithousing, wasn't
it? Yeah.
It was proper shithousing.
You know what? He was aggressive. He left his foot in. He was horrible and nasty. And I think the game's gone too far away from that. Like you say, you get people getting little nicks and they're rolling over everywhere. And I just think, do you know what? I was watching him, and I think it was the one where he was already on a booking, and I think the second half, and he's in the defensive third, and he's gone through the back of Rafinha and sort of followed through with a little scrape down his ankle, nothing too tonight, just a little bit of nastiness there. And I thought, you know what, fucking good on you, because I missed that side of the game. I was horrible. And I used to love a battle, and for me, the game's gone too far away from that. Like, tackling, people can't tackle nowadays. I look at tackling back in the day. You definitely seen something on Twitter where back in the day, someone's absolutely gone through somebody else, Vinnie Jones or somebody like that, absolutely smashed someone, and both players get up and they laugh it off. Do you know what I mean? And for me, it was brilliant. And players shouldn't, as long as you don't go over the top and it's not a leg breaking tackle, enjoy the physicality and that element of the game as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I do. Hold my hands up. I enjoyed his performance.
Yeah. Like, I could see why you'd see that side of it. Like, after the conversation we've just had about players not being tough enough and stuff like that, I can see that. All right, yeah. But I do think he got lucky with a few of the incidences where it could have easily been a second red. I get what you're saying, and I do enjoy that side of the game. But if we're talking rules of the game nowadays, there was two challenges. He could have definitely been gone.
It should have been sent. It should have been sent for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, but I do enjoy that side of the game myself. It's like we were here talking about the Cooper challenge on Pires for Leicester. Remember, it's like
good old-fashioned tackle.
What a tackle! What a tackle!
And I'll be honest with you, of all the players I didn't think would get up from that and not make a show of Cooper's challenge was Pires. And fair play to him. I'll you know, if I ever see him, I'll buy him a pint and go, fair play to you. Got up after that song and dance. And that was great, man. Could you imagine a full house stadium watching a tackle like that? Absolutely. Oh, man,
lifts it, doesn't it?
Imagine that away when you saw that. Like, fuck.
Yeah. I think, and we've touched on this before, haven't we? Like, when we talk about Mateus Click, for example, and he's a proper shithouse. We've seen him pour water down people's backs, and you see that nasty side to the game, and we applaud it when it's going our way and our players are doing it. But when it goes against us, we're very quick as Leeds fans, as all football fans are. When it goes against your team, you take it to heart and you do get pissed off. But I'm a bit like you on this one side. It's got to be on it. He was dirty. He should have been sent off. Could have had 4 bookings, to be fair. But it was good to see, and it was good for me to see an up and coming English left back. Where that position for the national team he's up for grabs, really, because we don't know if Luke Shaw's going to be off the burgers in time for Euro. So so it's up for grabs. So it's good to see a good English left back play with some tenacity and play that nasty side of the game. So I was going mad at one point, but looking back on it, and thinking about it, we've all done a tactical foul, and you're taught from a young age, take a booking, help your team out.
When you're
Do you know what? Go on, Karl.
You look like you were saying, you brought it up, and you said, big grin on your face, I loved how he played it. And like, in hindsight, when you have time to digest the game, like myself and Adam and yourself have now as well, we were kind of like, should have gone 4 times, nasty fucker. And then we're like, you know what? When you think about it, it's a dickhead. Like, but if it was one of our lads, we'd be like,
I'd love it.
We'd be buzzing for it, wouldn't we? If Barry were doing that, we'd be.
You know what I mean? It'd be like, so there is that element of it there.
I used to love. Do you know what? You talk about that Cooper challenge against Perez. I would love it if a centre half done that to me. I'd be pissed off. Don't get me wrong. I'd be pissed off, but then I'd think, fuck, okay, I'm in a game here today.
You're good after share.
It'd lift me and make me probably give me an extra couple of percent that I don't think was there. You know what I mean? So I'm all for that. All for that.
Yeah. Would you want the ball then played? Would you be then asking? Would you be then demanding the ball more so you could skin that centre back and make him look like 100%, a dickhead?
100%. You'd be doing.
You'd want it.
You'd be working that. Yeah, you'd work that tad harder to create a bit of space so you can get on the ball and have a go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then get tackled again.
As long as you don't get crunched again, you'll be alright. Well, I think it's good. I think that's good.
Yeah. Sorry, Adam. Don't mean to go on.
Go on. No, I was just saying. I think we've. That was a. I think as you said, it's good that in hindsight, and this is why the Berardi and Coke, I'm sure our listeners will agree, is that in the heat of the moment we're all pissed off because it's not going our way. But when you actually think about it and you put shoe on the other foot, it's always good to have this and to digest the information. But Karl, what were you going to say, pal?
Well, I was going to say I just wanted to get onto the game and just about Pablo's performance and maybe how he might have. Do you think he needed more time in the second half to maybe create a little bit more and get into it? I thought our crossing and our positional play when the ball was played in the box was a bit sloppy. Like, do you think he maybe needs to get a little bit more time on the ball? Say like a full 45, because as he gets older, it'll take him maybe 5-6 minutes to get into a game. But he is the player who can find that path. Like, he nearly did it twice tonight. Like, he got in the box there towards the end. He had 4 players around him, and not one of them would touch him. Like, and I think that's what when he came on, he added something different. Do you think should he be played more in the second half, give him more minutes?
So I'll let you go on that one, Si, because obviously you've
I mean, for this particular game, Karl, for me, it was crying out for someone like Pablo. He's really, when you look at our squad, he's really the only one that can sort of create something out of not a lot. Apart from Rafinha, obviously, he's the one that can pick a pass. Or so when you've got, especially second half, when you've got a team that's just setting up defensively and looking to hit you on the counter, you've got to have somebody on the pitch that's got that little bit of something different, and he's the only player that could sort of So for me, we needed to bring him on a little bit earlier as well. And I would have brought Jack Harrison on a touch earlier as well. I would have been for me personally, it probably would have been a little bit soul destroying for a couple of players, but I would have looked to have made changes at half time because it quite clearly weren't working. And Pablo would definitely have been someone that I would have been looking to bring on for sure.
He does bring that air of calm to a game when he's on the ball. You know, you're kind of looking at him when he's on the ball. You're like, there doesn't seem to be any fear of him losing it. If he does get rid of the ball, it's going to one of our players, regardless of whether they're 2 feet or 10 feet away from us. He's not going. You have that confidence in him that he's not going to lose it. And people go that he hasn't the legs for the Premier League, but as you know, Simon, as a player gets older, the legs don't matter. It's up here that matters, and that's what he's got. Like, and I think if he can play that role in the number 10 role, where Click can maybe cover his defensive work to a certain degree, you have Pablo just sitting there, and he could be serious damage because, like Pirlo, wasn't blessed with pace towards the end of his career. All they did was kind of play him a little deeper, pick up the ball, and then that was it. He created absolutely everything, and I think Pablo could be that player for us this season if we give him a little bit more time.
Sounds like you've been listening to me, Karl, with me saying play him defensive mid and let him ping the passes and keep the ball recycling.
Well, just like a little deeper, like, you know what I mean? If he picks the ball up a little deeper, he can make more effective passes in the forward play, like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he's quick thinking more than compensates for his lack of mobility, for sure. Do you know what I mean? Definitely agree with that.
I think we get more time on the pitch, like.
Yeah, I do as well. I think we're in a catch-22 with Pablo, aren't we? Because we start so slowly in games, and our second half performances are usually much better than our first half performances, and sometimes we chase in the game, and when you're chasing, you do need a little bit of legs, and Pablo just doesn't have that anymore. I think this game tonight against Villa, we could have had Messi and Ronaldo on the flanks, and we still wouldn't have created fuck all because we were just piss poor. It was just one of them.
The final ball was terrible for a lot of it, like it was.
It was just shocking, and I'd give Pablo 45 minutes, give him 10 minutes, give him 90 minutes. It wouldn't have made any difference because there were 10 other abject performances tonight. I don't think any player can come off that pitch tonight and say, do you know what? I had a good game. I thought they were all well below average. And not just, I'm not saying they've all played this season at higher levels than we'd ever expect them to. But I'm saying then tonight, none of them were even at their championship average, I don't think. I thought they were really, really poor, every single one of them. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to take. So the argument of does Pablo need more minutes for me? Yeah, but we need the players who are on the pitch to actually put the work in for the first 45. We can't just keep, as we saw with Southampton, teams are going to tire against us. They're coming at us. So we need to, and I know we don't adapt, and I know we don't deviate from the plan, but we've got to do something because at the moment we're waiting 60 minutes and then going, right, we've got all this energy, we'll fucking smash you now. But for 60 minutes we're shit, and players aren't, and players like Pablo who need the minutes aren't going to get them because you need that constant movement and that constant interlapping that Dallas and Ayling and that bring you. You can't have that if you have slower players, you're fucked, aren't you? So I mean, am I talking bollocks here or what?
No,
in my head it makes sense.
No, yeah, I mean the thing is when you start slow, you're always giving the opposition the upper hand, and there's that sort of when looking, if you go a goal down, you're ending up chasing, and you're coming up against good coaches who know how to shut you out. And I think you have to give Villa credit tonight because they left no spaces in behind to exploit. They knew exactly Dean Smith's no mug. He's no mug neither. He knew exactly what Leeds' strengths were, and he shut us out. And I think us end product could have been a little bit better at times, but for me, I think Villa did, even though they weren't great themselves, I think they deserved the way they defended today. They definitely deserved that result today. But you can't just keep starting slow and expecting to blow teams away in the last 20, 30 minutes because teams are the coaches that are, you're coming up against are very knowledgeable too, and just understand how to just protect that lead, and so we've got to start a bit better for me, for sure.
Yeah,
I think
Karl?
they defended for their lives, really. I think Villa, they did press us in the opening 20, 25 minutes, but they did start to sit back. Once they got that goal, it was gradual. It wasn't an instant thing. You could see it every now and again. It'd just get, Ollie Watkins would be a little further back, and he'd nearly be starting in his own half by the end of the game. That's how they started sitting,
Yeah.
And the only bits that they had were when Tyrone Mings maybe booted up the field and hoped that Ghazi or Mings were, or not Mings, but Watkins were far enough up the pitch to maybe make an effort to chase it. And you can't take away from Villa, like, if a team comes to defend against us, they're doing well to defend against us if they haven't conceded. So you can't really
100%.
take away from the fact that they've gone away with not conceding, and it means they've done a good job on us defensively. It doesn't mean that we were bad defensively, because that goal wasn't anything. Like, they're not going to sit there and replay that for the next 10 years going, what a goal. That was one of them goals that, like, that first touch, I don't know what Sky were saying, right? It wasn't a great first touch. He took it down and he didn't know where it was. That, like, a good first touch is knowing where the ball is. And he kind of had to readjust when it kind of went behind him rather than where he expected it to fall. And look, it's not a great goal to give away, but it's not a spectacular goal on Villa's behalf, and they just defended well after that. Like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and yeah, I think that the goal it just shows again how naive we are from set pieces, because it came from a break after a set piece, didn't it? Really, the corner came in, it broke, and our defensive line was poor. Cooper played him on. Costa was fucking still in Wolves. He was that far behind the play. It was shocking. So, but the final sort of segment that I want to get onto, boys, is obviously you may notice that Gareth Southgate was in the stadium today. There's a number of English players on show. Obviously Targett, Mings, Watkins, Bamford, Ayling. Was there any English player? I know this might be biased for you, Karl, but was there any English player in there that actually impressed? Because again, I just don't think there was any. If you're looking at the Euros and who's going to go, was there anybody in there that you would say, all right, he's got a chance of making it? Sorry, I'll come to you first, mate, because obviously.
Not particularly, no. Even though I enjoyed the left back's performance for Villa, he was. I don't think he's at the level to go to an international tournament. It's just that's a bit above him at the moment. Mings, for me, he's a touch and go. He's always got a mistake in him. I'm not talking about tonight. I'm just talking over the course of the season.
Yeah.
But I love Bamford. I have done since he was a kid. Coming through, I watched him closely. He'd be someone. He might look like I'm being biased here, but he'd be someone that I'd consider, because I just think I think the higher he goes, the better he'll be. And I said that when he was in the Championship last season, and people was having a pop. I was like, he's okay, he's all right. Watch next season. Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to draw me Twitter feed from last year actually. But for me, even though he didn't have the best of games tonight, for me, Bamford's probably the one that I'd be looking at, out of the players that was on the show tonight. He'd be the one that I'd be sort of pushing for me.
Yeah, Karl, what about you? Would you go? I mean, Watkins got an assist, all by very, very fortuitously, but he was still an assist, still registers. Bamford, other than that one bit of movement and skill in the that set up the Roberts chance, didn't really do anything. He looked frustrated. What would you take? Watkins ahead of Bamford? What should I take on the English players tonight? Because I thought they were all shit.
I'll be honest with you, out of all the players on the pitch, I think the only British player that impressed me really was bleeding McGinn. And he's Scottish, but
he's Scottish. Yeah.
I think Bamford was unlucky in the way that Villa scored their goal was pretty much carbon copy of the way the chance we created when Bamford slipped in the same manner, except one of their players managed to get a touch on it and Rafinha just about missed it. But I think out of the English players there tonight, I think Bamford and Watkins are probably the only ones that come away with any credit, really. Like, as lone strikers, they both led the line quite well. Under difficult kind of circumstances, the pitch wasn't great. I know we'd say we won't, talk about the pitch, because why would we? But I think that out of the players there, the English players there tonight, I think Watkins or Bamford, it's going to be between them two. I think by the end of it, whichever one of them finishes on more goals will go to the Euros. I think as backup only.
What about boys? And what about Ayling? Nobody's mentioned he's had a good season. He's not been. He's had a solid season. I won't say he's been our best player, but he's not made really that many mistakes, and he's always full of energy. Do you think how far away is he from a potential England call-up? So we're all talking about Bamford for the goals he's getting, but Luke's played right back, centre back, and he's been consistent. How far away do you think he would be would he have caught Southgate's eye tonight? Bearing in mind, what have we got at right back really at England? Alexander-Arnold? Wan-Bissaka? Does he offer something different? What do you think?
I love everything that Luke Ayling stands for. He started off in the lower divisions. He's worked his absolute off to get to where he is. But I just think that would be a step too far for him. You can see that sometimes he does well. He does well, and he's playing way above his station at the moment, in my opinion. But when you make that step up, there is a difference in levels. There is a massive difference, and I don't think he'd be able to sort of cut the mustard with that step up. Not for me. Not for me.
No, it is. Karl, you agreeing on that?
I love him.
Yeah, no, I think if he just keeps putting
right
in the performances he is for Leeds, I don't think I'd like personally. Obviously, I don't follow the English team or whatever, but I think if he continues to put in the performances for Leeds, I think that's all that matters for us, really. Like, obviously, I'm not going to. I'd love to see him get an England call up, even if it was in a friendly, because I think, like you said, like we all saw in that Amazon documentary, where it was like, I don't know if I'll be able to step up and this and that. And I think he's proved that he is able to this step up. But like you were saying, Simon, England world stage, it's that's Anuna. What's your man from bleeding goal? What's his name? It's like he gone from playing Sunday League in LA to Newcastle in about 5 minutes, and then he gets on to the US team. You know that film? Goal.
Oh, goal. Yeah, that's Santiago Munez or something.
Yeah, so yeah. So it could be a bit of a story like
Max to Riches, wouldn't it?
But yeah. But I think if he does get a call, fair play to him. But
yeah, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it for a friendly for the moment. I don't know if Southgate would be up for that. I don't know.
There was a lot of English players there tonight, so he could be watching any number of them. So
yeah, and they're all and Si. So with the England manager being there, if you knew there were when you were playing, if you knew there were scouts there and you were looking for a move, or you knew that scouts were there to watch you for a potential loan, did that give you especially with a loan, I should say, did that give you a spring in your step and you think, right, I'm going to impress these so I can get a good, decent loan move? Or did you think, oh, fuck's sake, here we go again? Like,
horrible, man.
Shafted.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I think players, I don't know, I'd like to see players today, that their take on it, but for me, it was just, I prefer to not know there was there. Just brings a whole lot more pressure. Do you know what I mean? Something more to think about when you just need to be concentrating on your game and focusing on that, really. But then always subconsciously you're thinking back, he's seen that shit touch. I've got no chance. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just having that shit touch and thinking, right, okay, next time I'll get it right. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it was just never something. I can only recall one time where I knew somebody was watching and I had a good game. The rest, bloody hell, I might as well not have been on the pitch. So personally, I suppose it depends on your mindset and how mentally strong you are. But for me, it was something that I would prefer not to know, for sure.
More difficult now with no crowds in the stadium. The players will probably see him in the stand regardless. Like, so even if they don't know, they can see him. Like, they're like, ah, Jesus, he's here again. What the?
But you raise a good point there, Si. You raise a good point, and I want to just quickly before we finish this episode, I just want to bring that back. So when you're saying when you knew there were scouts there, your brain was working doubly hard, wasn't it? You weren't doing things as natural as it would be because you're thinking, oh fuck, I've got to make sure this touch is spot on. And my question then is, do you think players like Robert and Jack Harrison, to a certain degree, where their final end product lacks more than it hits the hits the target or hits the sweet spot, do you think they overthink? And if they don't think as much and just let things happen more naturally, they'd be better players? Do you think that Bielsa and the way that he coaches and the intricacies and the information he gives them, do you think players have, and I'm not saying these players are thick or they're not clever, I'm just saying, do you think they're overloaded with so much information that they're constantly trying to process, and that takes away an impact of their natural instinct to whip that ball in on the left foot or to play that pass? We saw Robert setting up Bamford against Southampton. It was a beautiful ball. It was instinctive. So when they play on their instinct, do you think they're better, and do you think they're overloaded with information and they can't quite cope with it?
That's a difficult one to answer, because obviously I don't know the sort of the content and how much information they've been given. I think a lot of good coaches will give players a base to work from, and then you leave them up to their own devices, because that's why they're on the pitch, because they're good at that, or they're good at, do you know what I mean? They're good at certain things, and that's why they're on the pitch. I know that he goes very deep. He's a deep thinker, Bielsa, from what I've heard and from what I've seen. But without knowing sort of the content and how much information he actually gives them, it'd be hard to answer that, to be honest. Yeah, I'd struggle to answer that one unless I had more info to go off,
No worries. You know me, I like to ask stupid questions. Sitting on the fence, aren't you, mate? You get splinters.
Sitting on the fence there. But do you know what it is? I mean, I was trying to think back to sort of what I tell my players at the academy. I know it's a totally other end of the spectrum, but the reason there's like, when they're in certain positions on the pitch, what's the best option in that scenario. So you tell them, because that's the best option for them. And if they sort of, in their head, when they're in that scenario, they might think, that's not on, I need to do this, but they will push what you've told them instead of working off their own thoughts, if that makes any kind of sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
it does, yeah.
and that's when sort of shitty little errors can be made. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's best that you've got to put your trust in players and not overload them with too much. You've got to put the trust in them, because at the end of the day, you've signed them. They're on your books for a reason, because you like them as a player. Do you know what I mean?
Carl, what about you? You've played football as well, obviously not to the level of Simon, and I'm nowhere near that level of Simon either. So when you've played, have you, what would you think? Would you look at Roberts and Harrison and players who make these, you think you're screaming at them saying, why have you just not fucking popped that in first time, or why have you done that? Why have you cut back? Why have you played, as you said, Si, why have you not played that pass? Why have you tried to dribble? That decision making, do you think it is because there's too much information in their heads, or do you think they're just not thinking?
Like Simon
properly?
said, I think it's a case that we don't know the ins and outs of what goes on in the training sessions and the load of information that they're given, whether it be in meetings, going through game analysis, or whether it's on the pitch. But from what we've seen of the training videos and stuff like that, we see that there's a lot of quadrants set out, there's a lot of positional play, and from what I've seen of these, looking at them from a coaching element as well, it's like all these yellow lines, they're in definitive places rather than just randomly on a pitch. So the players, it's like muscle memory. They know when they get to a certain part of the pitch that there's going to be maybe 4 or 5 yards in between each line where they have that opportunity to play the ball, because they know how a defender is probably going to react when they get into that position. So maybe what you're saying is correct, that maybe they are overloaded with bits of information and the instinct is taken away from them. But at the same time, they're given freedom of movement within that area that they're given as well, I'd imagine. Like if you can see it when a play kind of develops in a certain area, and say Harrison has to slow down rather than being able to be continually progressive, because he can then play it into that area, perhaps, that we see then that it slows down, and that's where it's like, that's when the instinct starts coming in, because you get players coming in, we try and switch the play to the other side rather than, use that side again, and that's maybe where the instinct comes in. And sometimes maybe I've seen it where they get the ball in the middle of the box and Dallas might just take a random shot, so maybe they have this thing where they'll work on, muscle memory stuff on certain parts of the pitch, and then they're in other parts. It's more of, well, if you have a chance for a shot, have a pop, but if it doesn't work out, we're going to transition into this part then, and we'll work from there. Maybe that's what it is as well. And that kind of information can, like, if you're not a top level player like De Bruyne or someone like that, that could potentially melt your noodle. And you're right, take away the instinct as well. Like, but I don't think Bielsa likes taking away the instinct too much either,
No. Well, it's interesting then. I think that's an interesting topic then. So the final thing I want to ask, boys, is just a standard out of 10. That performance from Leeds tonight. What we're going with, because I've got my feelings on it. Karl, I'll come to you first, mate. What was your final analysis, if in a 10-second analysis and a rating, please, mate?
Okay. Villa stifled our play because they got that early goal. They started sitting deeper and deeper and deeper throughout the game. Our final ball was sloppy, crossing a bit shit. Need to shoot more. Instinct needs to come into it. And I would go with about 5.5 to a 6 out of 10.
That's high. That's a lot higher than I'd give. Si, what are you saying, mate?
I would personally go for a 6, on the basis that we did have a few half chances. Well, we had a gilt-edged chance with Raff at the near the end with the header. I just think we definitely need to look at as final ball. But on the flip side, credit to Villa, because they stifled us really well, limited what we could do, what we're good at, and all credit to Villa and definitely Dean Smith, because he's definitely done his own work.
Yeah. So just once they got that goal.
I'm gonna be harsh. I'm gonna go with a 4. I don't think it was anywhere near. It weren't near average. It was below average for me. Not one player performed. We know how we like to attack. We know how we like to build pressure. I just don't think the intensity were there from anybody, really. Yeah, we had the chance with Rafinha's header. Roberts should have scored. It was a good save from Martinez. He was straight at him, but still had to make a good reflex there. But I just didn't see anything that warranted any praise tonight. And as I said earlier, I don't think any one of them players tonight could come off that pitch and hand on heart say, do you know what, I actually bust my ass today. I gave it my all, because nobody did. Not one. There were slack passes everywhere in the first half. There were slack passes in the second half. It was just a very un-Leeds-like performance. And it raises the concern for me that we can absolutely steamroll Southampton in second half and then play 90 minutes of shit. So, yeah, 4 out of 10, and that's me being very, very generous.
Do you know what? I did see this performance coming on the back end of the second half of the Southampton game. I thought, do you know what? That's the second half is not sustainable, and it's going to take a lot out of it. When was the Southampton game? Sorry.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday.
Right,
8 o'clock.
so
So they've had plenty of time, really.
They've had decent recovery, but it's still that second half where they took a lot out of them, a lot. So I weren't overly convinced about today's game at all, to be honest. But I suppose, like I said at the start, you got to accept that there's going to be flat performances from time to time.
Yeah.
It's
I think
it's with the way we are. I think like they are championship players, but they're not Premier League players. They've earned that right, and we've discussed that before. But they're a level above what's below them, but they're just not at the next level. And I think our expectations are just too high because of how we perform against the bigger teams. Yeah. And I think as soon as we realise that, we're not going to get Champions League this season, maybe next season or the season after, but we're going to start challenging more and more. And when we start getting up there, when we're finishing 7th and we should have finished 5th, let's be pissed off then. But let's be pissed off for the right reasons. Let's not be pissed off with them now for the way they're playing.
Victims of their own success, Ad. That's what it is. Victims of their own success, mate.
Yeah.
Listen, the Southampton game, it's like pulling a 10, and then tonight we pulled a 3. It was shit. You know what I mean? You're never going to be happy with that. You just want some solid 7s. I just want 7s, just consistent. You know what I mean? But,
consistency
but,
is the key after all.
That's it. Right. On that note, boys, I've been Adam the Leeds fan. This has been Berardi and Coke. I've been joined by Karl and by Simon. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Hit subscribe. Listen to us on our Orta Know Better podcast as well. Boys, thank you ever so much for your time on a Saturday night after an abject performance. Appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.
Have a good one, lads.
See you later, boys.
Boys.
See you later.
See you later.
See you later. Sure.